Great job, Shaheem. Thanks again.
Problem.
Yes, sir. Good job. Just like always, cuz. Good job, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey, Shaheem, what's Jairus doing?
Jairus, he's in the other room playing his video games right now.
Keeping up with his schoolwork and stuff?
Yeah, he's actually pretty close to being done with the year.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Tell him I said hello.
I will.
All right. Thank you. Be well.
I was just texting with Shaheem, telling him about the school board meeting that got Zoom bombed last night. Did you guys hear about that?
Oh, no. What happened?
Did
It's
hear
too
about
bad. Somebody got on while the treasurer of the school board was talking, and somehow was able to draw over his screen and was drawing swastikas and inappropriate images. And then it just took the moderator way too long to kick him out.
Oh,
And when they kicked him out, then a minute or two later, they let him back in under a different name, and he started posting like porn
wow.
on the screen, and they had to shut down the entire meeting.
That's been happening a lot.
Yeah.
And there's all different ways to combat that, but once they change their screen names, it's really hard.
I just want to take pride and say that I haven't ran into an issue like that yet.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I've seen people do, well, like you set up a waiting room and everybody who wants to join the meeting has to have a screen name that's recognizable, and you can ask that everybody turn on their camera, at least so that they're identified. And if they refuse to comply, you can leave them in the waiting room and not admit them to the meeting, and eventually they'll drop out if they're not a good actor. And if it ends up being somebody that you can ask them to text you to let in. There's all different ways that people are like trying to prevent this. And when we decided to do Circus After School on Zoom, I connected with, I don't know, 14 or 15 other youth circuses that are working with students on Zoom to find out what their safety protocols are. But it's messed up.
All right. Well, I think it's 5:30 now. Not to start the meeting, but as you know, definitely because of what's going on in our world and in our own little city. We're definitely gonna start this thing with a prayer. So if you can, just bow your heads with me. Lord Jesus, we thank you, Lord, for all you do. Lord, we thank you. We appreciate your love, what you do, Lord. We ask you to just bless Hudson. Lord, look after the youth. Lord, look after the elderly in our city. Lord, look after those, Lord, that's in leadership. But we ask you to, Lord, just look after those that's in need. Hallelujah. We ask you, Lord, to look after those that's going through any mental situations. We ask you to just bless those, Lord Jesus, that is just looking for some kind of closure. Lord, we ask you, Lord, to just wrap your arms around this city. In your precious name we pray. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. Hello?
Okay.
Hello?
We hear you.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I can't see myself in this. I got this new phone, so I don't know if I'm on or not. So
Yeah, I see you too.
okay, that's good. As long as everybody else could probably see me. Maybe I don't need to see myself anyway. That's good.
You look good, Malachi.
Thank you, Dave. You do too, sir.
You look strong.
All right. Well, first order of business is Robin on?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. How you doing, Robin?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Hey, everyone.
Do you have anything of note to bring up to the council?
Sure. In terms of the senior center, we are gonna be one of the last departments to open just for the safety of the seniors and because the meal program is servicing the people who normally attend the meal program. So they're able to get their meals delivered with it closed, and they also get additional meals given to them. So we're going to keep going with that in collaboration with the Office of the Aging. And then we're continuing to transition our programs to be done virtually. So we will probably stay closed longer than some of the other departments, just out of safety. We're doing quite a bit of work in response to the nursing home situation. The state was late or still working on releasing a nursing home plan. When they released their response plan for the hospitals, it didn't include the nursing homes. And the directive to send COVID patients to nursing homes has led to this crisis situation. It's been very hard. So recently, Antonio Delgado revised the CARES Act, the money allocated to the state, to make sure that it was allocated for nursing homes. And that had specific provisions in it for the money to go directly to them, so they could pay staff as needed, take care of some of these additional expenses that they were accruing as a result of the situation. And we're working with the ombudsman for our region, who's there's an ombudsman's office. I'm getting a storm coming in. And they only have 2 ombudsmen for 5 counties. So clearly that's problematic, especially given the situation. And we know that our nursing homes were understaffed before COVID-19. The directive to have an infectious disease control person was only given in November of 2019. So some nursing homes didn't even have an infectious control specialist on staff when this happened. So we're just trying to continue to work together along with AARP and some of our state senators to try to put into place some stronger structures to improve the quality of care for our elders that live in nursing homes and try to build more community support. The ombudsman has had difficulty getting volunteers for both Columbia and Greene County. So we're going to try to work on that and see if we can have some more volunteers to go through the training and to volunteer their time to work with the families of the residents and the residents themselves. So that's been the priority right now in terms of making sure that's addressed. The county hasn't, when it first were reporting the numbers for COVID, they were being specific about the nursing homes, and for some reason, it's just in the overall numbers. But Ghent Rehabilitation Center, they did all their testing, all the staff, all the patients. They have 0 positive cases there. And Fireman's Home did their testing, and there have been no specific cases reported there. So that's all good news. And the Ghent Rehabilitation Center did put in very strict safety protocols prior to the state directives. So we were pretty confident he wasn't going to have positive cases because of that. So those are all in place. So it's hopeful. It's very optimistic that these 2 nursing homes will be okay going forward. And we're still working on making sure we're in touch with all the nursing homes in the county, really. So just a lot of work to keep track of. But that's where the focus has been. So that's.
And how are they?
Mhm.
Have you been getting any just information of, are they in need of anything, any mask or what have you?
They've been prioritized for getting the mask based on what happened in in the city, what we saw there. So that they've the nursing homes have been prioritized. As far as I know, they have everything they need. The Ghent Rehabilitation Center did request reusable masks because he has laundry on site, and the county was able to get that to him.
Great.
And the fireman's home, just so everyone knows, is managed by the state. So, you know, they are following state protocols pretty closely. And that's also one of the other issues, is that they're all managed differently. So Barnwell is owned and managed by a corporation that has 5 nursing homes, and some in Queens. And so there were some concerns there about what the corporation was doing versus what the administrator wanted to do. And I know there was an article that came out from a staff member there, reported the conditions, and that was, you know, they have a lot of issues there related to what their staff was being directed to do. So sifting through everything there.
Okay. That's great. Anybody got any questions? For Robin?
It looks like Nick might have a question, but he's muted.
Yeah, thank you. Robin, there's a couple people who are texting me that are having trouble getting into the meeting. I'm gonna re-email. I have a feeling they may be using the old link from the beginning of the email chain. So I'm
Yeah,
gonna
I
try
did that first.
What's that? Oh, is
I
that?
did that too, yeah.
happening? I'm gonna just try really quickly to send this off again to folks to make sure that everybody's getting the right link.
Thanks, Hudson Tech.
Thank you.
All right, let me send this along.
Did anyone else have any questions or anything while Nick's taking care of that? No? Okay.
Got it. Okay, so I sent that off to Dominic and Tamar Adler, who both wanted to get on. Hopefully they'll be able to get on here.
Okay.
All right, are we ready for youth?
I believe so. Any other questions before we move on? All right, Nick, take it away.
So I'm going to try to go as quickly as possible through the general updates and really focus as much of the meeting on summer as possible, just because in the last 2 days, a lot of new stuff has come up, making summer a lot more difficult, but a lot more possibilities might be open. And so I really want to get this conversation going with the youth committee and the rest of our partners so that we can really try to figure out how to move forward. You know, in general, we're still running our food program. It's been very successful. We did a big transition this week where we're moving away from packing boxes for folks and delivering them directly to people at the 4 major sites and right to their homes. And we're engaging in this new process where we're trying to get the food from the food bank, bring it directly to 2 sites, and just put the food right out on the tables in a very organized, well set up way, and allowing folks to pick their own food. So this is both a process that's going to be a lot more efficient and less labor intensive and less expensive for us, and also hopefully allow families getting food from us to get the food they want and not have as much wasted food as we may have had in the past while we were packing boxes directly for people. So we just did the first kind of attempt at that yesterday afternoon. And it seemed to be a huge success on all fronts, even as a first run, which was a little bit chaotic, and it'll definitely get much more organized and kind of dialed in as we move along. But that's a big change, and the overall goal of that is to decrease the amount of labor that we're spending on the food program, while allowing that program to keep going as long as possible while folks are still in need of food, and allow us to have more capacity to really start doing summer planning, which is really what we're trying to shift all of our focus onto. So I guess what I would just say is, because I definitely want to talk about food program however possible, but there's so many new summer things that I want to go over with folks. I'll just stop here and just ask if anybody has any food program related questions that we could go along with that. And if people don't, then we'll move on. But I wanted to give people the option to talk or ask questions about the food program if they had them.
Has there been any concerns, Nick, about the food, or is everybody seem to be pretty set?
It seems to be good. The only downside to this new kind of transition is that instead of delivering to 4 different major places, we're now doing once a week at the terraces, which is very close to everybody at the terrace. It's only a block away from Bliss and Providence, and a few hundred feet away from everybody in Schuyler Court. And then on Fridays, we're doing it from Providence Hall. So that's closer to the Bliss Providence end. And so the folks who aren't able to get to walk a block, they're now going to be able to get food once a week instead of twice a week if you can't do that 1 block walk. We are still delivering prepared meals to Providence Hall to make sure all the seniors in Providence Hall, since they really are the folks who probably have the biggest issues in terms of mobility and being able to do that block. Every delivery, we're always bringing enough prepared meals for 2 to 3 days for those folks at Providence Hall to make sure that that we're not leaving anybody in the lurch there. And we've told folks too that if it's an emergency and if you need this twice a week, we can bring a box to you. So we're still doing that. But that's really the only trade-off. All the feedback we got yesterday, both from our staff and from people participating, was that they like this much better, because people get to pick out their own food now. And I think that's a big bonus, because they're not getting to pick out the exact brands they want, the exact things. We have a limited supply. So to be able to give them whatever choice we can, I think is really important to folks.
Yeah, definitely good.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
I just wanted to ask if you needed any additional volunteers to maybe bring food to the folks that can't make the block, or if that's something that would be helpful at this point.
I think it will. And we still have, I think, over, or at least close to 50 families that we're doing custom deliveries to, and we have a whole fleet of volunteer drivers. And so we're still packing boxes for them. And that now has become the kind of the biggest. I'm just getting a message from Maya saying that she can't get on either. Crap. All right, so I can try to do that while I'm talking, but we are. And the goal is to try to get to try to figure out a way to not have to continue to pack boxes for anybody. So what we may try to do is at the end of the food distribution, when we've got all the food out, put together boxes for everybody who needs it custom delivered right there on the spot, and then have delivery people go out to all the different areas. But I guess the short answer is yes. We definitely use volunteers, both in the distribution to help distribute the food and also in delivery. So we can reach out to you, Stephanie, about that, and that would be great.
All right.
Shaheem, do you think if you can, while you're moderating, might be able to reach out to Maya and try to figure out what problems she's having? I'll try to send her another link. But she's an important one to have on this call, and she says she's having trouble getting on. I'll try to send the link to her again too.
All
Let
right.
let her know if she's on, to go on Chrome, and because Internet Explorer and Zoom sometimes are not compatible at times. So make
Got
sure
it.
she's on a Chrome platform. That helps me. I always go on Chrome now.
Um,
Oh, yeah, Eileen says hosting another meeting, which probably means that she's logging on to the wrong link. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll send it to her too.
oh, looks like-
There she is, I think.
isn't that Kaya?
Kaya's on.
Hey
Hi,
guys.
Kaya.
Hi. Nick, when you're done with what you're doing, I have a quick question.
Go right ahead.
Just around, and maybe you'll talk about this around summer, of thinking about once summer overlaps with your food distribution program, are you guys planning to end at a certain time? Are you trying to continue through? Or is this something you're thinking about, like ongoing, being like a food pantry for the community? Or have you guys not gotten to that decision point yet? Like, is there a need for this to be taken over or scaled down or something like that?
Yeah, the goal is to try to continue to provide this current kind of iteration of the food distribution for as long as we need to during this kind of pandemic time. And that's obviously a hard thing because some families may have been hit by this and are going to continue to have food issues long term.
Yeah.
I don't think it's our intention to continue this in perpetuity. We're always a food resource for the community because we do provide so many meals for youth, and families depend on that. But I would think that we would try to phase out as we get back into fall programming, just figure out whatever kind of fall programming we can do at the youth center. If things are starting to get back to normal, people are back to work, we're getting into phase 4 of the governor's timeline, I would think that's when we would try to phase out. And the goal would be, as we're doing this new kind of distribution method, part of what we're trying to do is really get a sense for who needs this food and who's dependent on it, and make the whole process more efficient, faster, and get the numbers down to really the people who need it most urgently. And then one idea is, if we could really get this down to a clockwork process that operates a lot easier than it does right now, which I think we really could, given how well this new process went on Tuesday. I think the idea of having it be either almost entirely volunteer staffed or something that another organization could come pick up on and take over the heavy lifting, that it could be passed off to someone else, and someone in the community could continue to do this food distribution, since it seems like folks really do need it and people are really benefiting from it. But that's a long answer to that question. But short answer is, we don't want to be doing this long term, but we do want to be doing it as long as folks need it.
Yes,
And we're
sir.
committed to helping as long as we need to.
And Nick, I got a question too.
Yep.
You talked about the opening for the summer. Do we have an idea of just how the safety protocol is gonna look?
Yeah, so
with
that's the big topic. And I'll give the brief kind of update first, as hopefully these other folks are coming on. But it's very clear from everything coming from the county that our county government does not want summer camps, period. They tried to have, they have a limited amount of authority, but they tried to go directly to the state to allow them to basically pass a local law that would allow them to basically say no summer camps this summer in Columbia County, and the state said no. And then they've since put out a statement, which I attached to the end of the agenda, since yesterday, the big breaking news was Governor Cuomo came out and said summer camps can happen this summer and they can open in June. And that was kind of a big surprise to us to see that. But then right on the heels of that, Columbia County just came out with another statement that says, we still don't want anybody in Columbia County to open up summer camps. And that was coming directly from the chairman of the county. And so it puts us in a really difficult position because we do have to go through any camp that we run, and basically any summer programming that we run has to go through the Columbia County Department of Health. And if they don't want summer camps to happen, they can't say, no, you can't do a summer camp. But if we're trying to run one, they could make our life miserable and do everything they can to keep us from running it, basically, in small bureaucratic ways. And we really wouldn't want to run a summer camp in opposition to their wishes. It wouldn't work out well at all to be running a summer camp with the Department of Health saying we don't want you to run it. We really would have to be working with them to run a good summer camp. I think Stephanie had a question.
Go ahead, Steph.
Thanks, Nick. I was just wondering if you've had the conversation at the county level, like, can they differentiate between daycare and childcare, which is going to be an essential service, and a summer camp? And if there are guidelines and protocols to allow essential services like childcare to happen, is there a way to tailor what summer programming looks like to meet those guidelines?
Yes, and they even said if you, when you get to read the statement, they said that childcare is an essential service, and it's going to be a really important thing. But then it goes back to, okay, well, what if we call it childcare? Is that what makes you guys happy? And I don't think it's going to be what makes them happy. And at least as the school district has found, serving children of essential workers can be a really difficult process just in terms of the bureaucracy of proving that someone's an essential worker. And they found that, they've been operating a daycare there at the school for this entire pandemic, basically, but they have very few participants. And most of it is because of the difficulty of registering and proving that someone is an essential worker and going through all that paperwork. And so that's some of the guidance that we're going to be looking for from the county, is trying to figure out what we can do, what we can't do, and then kind of paving a path with all of the partners from HOST, from all the different partner organizations, and in collaboration with what the city wants too. And so for those, do we get the rest of our crew on here? It looks like we got Maya. We're still missing Dominic and Eileen. Hopefully they can find a way to get on.
I sent Eileen an email. She said she's just gonna watch it once the recording's posted.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Thanks, Shaheem. So
No problem.
what I'll just quickly do is fill everybody in, because the youth department and our staff have been talking about this. What are the possibilities? What can we do if we can't run a traditional summer camp? What other options are there? Could we do lots of small individual programs around the city that are catering to different youth in different places and trying to serve smaller groups, social distancing practices, and try to serve as many youth as we can like that? What about working with partner organizations? So we've been having lots of discussions and smaller committee meetings from the Hudson Out of School Time Network, which, to those who don't know, is a huge, really great network of all the kind of youth program providers in Columbia County. And we've been working very closely together to talk about, as a community, what can we do and what are the different possibilities. And a lot of really productive, great ideas have come out of those meetings. And what we're talking about is just getting all the possibilities out there on the table. And then as regulations come at us and as things open up, really just trying to jump on any opportunities we can and try to provide whatever programming we can while being as safe as possible. So smaller group individual programs around the city is one idea. You know, a limited smaller camp for essential workers, maybe one at the youth center, one at Oakdale is another thing that's been talked about. Another idea that we've kind of thrown out there is bringing on summer staff, but not having them all located in one place and doing supervised programs, but being out in the community and meeting youth where they are, handing out masks, handing out water, handing out snacks, handing out kits, and just kind of staying aware of where kids are congregating, where kids are, meeting them where they are, not necessarily supervising or telling them what to do, but just trying to meet them where they are and understand, and then reporting back to us and allowing the larger community to try to develop plans, knowing what youth are doing and where they are. Because that's really the heart of the issue, is that we're going to have our limitations on what we can do, but every one of us who works with youth knows that there's going to be 600 youth in the city of Hudson, either inside for the entire summer or out on the streets, grouping up with their friends, doing something here, doing something there. If they're not adults around, they're not going to have masks on, they're not going to be social distancing. And they're not going to be supervised. And it's going to be really dangerous on a lot of different fronts. And so we're in a really tough place where we have lots of restrictions of what we can do as youth workers, but we know the other side of it is that the youth are going to be out, they're going to be with each other, they're going to be doing stuff. And so it's a really big dilemma of what can we offer, how can we offer it, and how quickly can we put plans together? Because this is all coming up. I mean, typically we would start after the 4th of July, and that's pretty much 1 month we have.
Right.
And I just wanted to step in. I just got on. I apologize. I don't know if anybody had welcomed Police Commissioner Peter Volkman. I'm glad you're here. And the real purpose was that now that we're having these conversations, especially about what you're talking about right now, Nick, is that the kids are going to be out and law enforcement is going to be out. And how do we connect with kids possibly, not possibly, but in a different way? How do our police factor into supporting the youth this summer at this very different time? So I just wanted to welcome you and say that.
Thank you, Mike. And thanks for being here, Peter.
Glad to be part of the team here. So whatever I can do to help.
So one other thing that I want to just throw out there, which kind of runs parallel to this and is almost the exact same issue, just with a different set of circumstances, is we have the larger summer camp, summer programming issue. But then we have the issue of Oakdale, the park, the lake, the beach, which falls under the responsibility of the youth department, for better or for worse. And I have been hearing a lot and getting a lot of questions from the community, as I know Nikki has, as I know a lot of people have, of when is Oakdale going to open? How is it going to open? Are there going to be lifeguards? Is the beach going to be open? Can I swim at Oakdale? Is it swim at your own risk? And so in the same manner, we're facing a real issue of knowing that this park is here and that this pond is the access to water for a lot of people in this community who can't go to any pool anywhere. They don't have an aunt who's got a pool. They can't go to Kinderhook, to the creek, to wherever else, to Lake Taconic. This is their access to water, recreation. And whether we have lifeguards or not, they're going to come here this summer and they're going to swim here. And if we have an entire summer without lifeguards, they're going to be here and they're going to be unsupervised, and there will be people swimming at Oakdale no matter what we try to do in terms of enforcement, with or without lifeguards. And that is a really big concern of mine. And we've been in conversations with the department heads and the city attorney. And we really don't have any strong guidance from the state, from the county, on what to do on this. So it's really coming down to the wire because we've got a month to plan this and we don't have any guidance. So it's really at the moment now where we need to put together a plan for Oakdale for the summer as we're planning summer camps and summer programming.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Are you looking for lifeguards? Is that the need for training for lifeguards?
We were, so I'll take a quick step back to answer your question, Peter, because, and just give a little reminder to folks that before the pandemic hit, the youth department was going through a process of requesting more money for our budget to basically allow us to run our summer camp this year, which was money for summer staff and lifeguards, which was not included in the 2020 budget that we got. When we broke that up into two parts, the total was 70,000. We were getting 35 in two parts. We got the first part of it, I believe, in February, and we were going to come back for the second part when the pandemic hit. We thought at that point, there's not going to be any summer camp. There's no way we're going to be able to open Oakdale. So we haven't come back, and it just has always seemed like a difficult thing to come back to ask for more money for lifeguards. But right now I'm second guessing that. And it seems to me like the thought of having 2 or 3 months at Oakdale with people on this beach and people swimming and people using the park without lifeguards on duty, it would be irresponsible for me to move forward as a director of that park without having really seen whether it's possible to have lifeguards. So I think that at this point, Peter, I don't know if I would have said this yesterday, but I think that I am going to push for doing that and push for trying to have lifeguards at Oakdale this summer. And I don't know if it's possible budget-wise. I don't know if it's going to be possible in terms of the county. But I think that's my opinion right now that I'm kind of sharing tonight with all of you all after just the new events that have happened over the past few days. We do have a instructor, Trudy Bite, who does lifeguard training. She has said that she could do training if we could get the potential lifeguards to her and get all their proper certifications. We do have a list of potential candidates for lifeguards. Some have experience, some have their certification, needs to be recertified, others would be new. So it would be a lot of work, but I think it is possible.
Because I don't know if you know, but the Hudson Pool has a problem and it's draining, and they had to drain the whole thing. It has a leak. And
Didn't know that.
so, yes. And so it's out for the summer. And a colleague of mine, Joe Alessi, had a lifeguard course with 15 people all set for the Hudson Pool. And now he has no place to do the lifeguard training. He said he tried to send you guys an email to see if he could use Oakdale. So that's just a possibility too.
He did, Peter, and Maya talked to me about that today, and I just didn't get to look at that email yet, but Maya forwarded it to me, so I'm going to read that, but I am going to look into that, and that, that could be a possibility for more lifeguards, and especially hearing now that the school pool is going to be closed
All summer.
for the summer.
Yep.
That kind of reiterates this whole need.
I guess the tile broke and it started leaking internally. So they had to drain the whole pool and they have to retile, and it's a big project, I guess, for them.
Wow.
So, yeah. So that's all. I just thought of that of an opportunity.
Yep.
But that's that. Now the pool's done for families. Even if it was able to open up in July or August, they have no timetable of when they're going to refill the pool now. So there's another need that's coming into Hudson that was almost a relief valve that's not there now.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
big.
means it pours, yeah. Jeez. Wow. Well, I actually just wanted to tip my hat off to the mayor for organizing that peaceful protest Sunday. just very moving, very touching, just given the situation just around us. We all know, we know what's happening, know what's going on. And, for him to step up and, just with the team and come together with the youth and, just to display what's going on, their feelings about the situation, just moving. It was very touching to me. Kite's Nest was definitely a big part of that. And everybody just come together as usual, because that's what Hudson does. And, I was glad to hear that they kind of weeded out the little troublemakers that was trying to, incite things, which, like I said, I always knew that, if this thing did take place, that Hudson was going to step up. And Nick, I definitely want to commend you with, just getting together, making sure that the youth having masks and, because of, I know the visual is down street. They've been going back down there to, just pay their respects. And a lot of youth, they were very respectful. I would ride down myself a few times trying to hand out masks and just talking to some of the youth and just seeing, what they need, just if there's anything that, I could do or anybody can do, just being in their ear, just being there for them. I think just from what Maya was talking about, Mr. Volkman, I want to welcome you here again. And I think she just want to, well, we all would like to know just what do you guys have planned for just to approach kids now, based off of, just what's going on right now? Is there anything set in place to, how you guys would just deal with a distraught kid or, just somebody that just needs, just some type of attention? Is there anything planned out?
Right now, we are reassessing our needs. And I've just, I've just assessed there's officers that have different capabilities. Some are really good at understanding cultural differences and some aren't. And so that's an important assessment, and you got to look at your strengths and your weaknesses of all your personnel.
Right.
So we'll be deciding on what officers that need help. We're going to give them that training that are deficient in the whole idea of community engagement. And those officers who are naturals at it, they're just, officers are human beings. And some are really natural at engaging others, and some just struggle with it. I mean, the profession, it attracts those that struggle with engagement sometimes. It's an alpha male type of attraction to this profession. And that's the hard part for us in administration, is trying to filter out the different personalities it attracts, some for the better and some not for the better. So with that, we're planning on more foot patrols. We're planning on bike patrols. I'm really pushing to get them out of the car. I'm looking to set up with the sergeants different zones and neighborhoods. What I did in Chatham was I created what's called Your Cop, where officers were assigned neighborhoods and got to know them and visited their doors on a non-emergency, non-emotional situation when usually people call cops and just have conversations. Once COVID's done, we're definitely going to open up the police station for the community and have a community day. It's the people's place, and they need to see what's inside. They need to see where their tax dollars are going.
Absolutely.
So, I have a couple ideas and kind of moving forward that has worked for me in different agencies and consulting with different agencies. I'm really what I'd like to do, and I'm looking to get funding, and it looks like I have it, is like on a Friday afternoon, just get some ice pops with officers, and we're just going to go around and have ice pops with kids. We can still be socially distanced. Those ice pops in ShopRite, you know, you can get 100 of them for $10, you know, that type of thing. We get a couple hundred ice pops and just go out with kids in a non-emotional, non-emergency, and just have conversations that way. So that's something that I plan on doing. And once I do, I'll let you all know when we plan on just having Ice Pop Friday or something like that with the kids. And the adults will want it too. So we got to get some extra because they're going to be wanting. That happens too. Like moms and dads are like, can I have an Ice Pop too? And, you know, we don't want to say it's just for the kids. But I think that engagement, that initial engagement in a non-emergency is necessary. And that's what I'm going to try to put together.
All right, Stephanie, you have a question?
I do. Thank you so much. And thank you, Mr. Volkman, for being part of the conversation. And thank you for letting me as a citizen to become part of the conversation. I just want to go back to the idea of trainings. And as a youth worker, I've invested a lot of years and a lot of training in learning how to, and I'm not done, you know, and I work with kids of one particular age, and then there are kids with which age groups I have less experience. But I do, you know, all of us here in Hudson are pursuing as much training as we can to be excellent with youth work. And I want to suggest that I love the idea of reaching out to the community and making the officers more friendly. But really underlying all of that is this training and having an educated foundation of understanding people's responses, understanding your own responses, and being able to moderate when the situation gets tough. And unfortunately, I mean, hopefully, you know, if the police budget has room in it for popsicles and tactical gear, hopefully there's a lot more room in it for ongoing, regular, multiple times a year education and training, not only for the cops who need it, but the cops who feel like they're okay, because we all need ongoing training. And I feel like that's a really big end run around, you know, some problems that we're seeing in other communities. So I'm just asking you, do you have plans for additional training in light of what's going on?
Yeah, and unfortunately, budgets are real tight. And so the best training we can get, and I've been in touch with Brian McCormick, and is to get online training. See, if we have an in-house training, there's going to be officers on overtime, and it's thousands of dollars to do a day training. It's just, you know, for a speaker to come in to do that training. So what a lot of police departments are doing is they're having people either do it, you know, video themselves. So then when an officer comes in on their shift, they could do the modules of the training when they're in the station house, and it's whenever they're working that day. So it saves thousands and thousands of dollars. Is it as good as in person? No, but what we're finding is just like anywhere else, online training's where it's at. Online education's where it's at. So if you have something that's online already, or if you're willing to make an online training or, you know, video and online training, we can talk about what it takes in time and understanding officers, and they have attention deficit disorder. So to engage the actual training, you just don't want someone getting up there and speaking like I am right now, because it's just, you'll lose somebody after a half hour, especially cops. They're like 13-year-olds sometimes. That's what, when I talk to counselors who see a cop for the first time, they always say, what should I see that person as? And it's an adolescent. There's adolescent minds. And so let's look together and find videos. That would be the quickest way that I could start some cultural competencies training and awareness training on youths. That way. And so I'm all open to that. That's the easiest. To do an actual one day, we'd have to talk and look at the budget.
Can I ask a question about that too? You had said initially that there's this assessment process. And then I'm wondering kind of what that looked like, and then also what that would look like in the future, maybe after the training. Like, what is the expectation? How are we seeing
Well,
development and things like
sure.
that.
The assessment, the original plan was that I needed about two or 3 months to get a hold of what the department's about financially, psychologically, emotionally, see where they're at. And then just when I was ready to start to put a whole assessment together for the community, COVID happened and then everything changed.
Right.
And even now, as a commissioner, I had to be careful going in only because we were really worried that, and we had plans that what happens if 3/4 of the department came down with COVID and now we don't have officers. I mean, that was a huge concern. It's not as much anymore.
Mhm.
But so now I'm riding, some of you probably seen me. I ride Friday nights or Saturday nights, and getting out to the community as best I can, but getting to know the officers that way and their needs. So that assessment will hopefully come within a month or two. But then again, with this situation, of the murder, is another nuance that I think needs to take precedent of all the assessments that I'm doing at this point. And the financial assessment can change now rapidly because we don't know where we are financially as a city. And that's just the reality. I'm just telling you that no one can predict the sales tax coming back. No one can predict anything. So we're in like a big gray area right now that we just have to have patience and take it one day at a time that way. So, so with this up, I'm looking more of, okay, where's the priority for the department right now? Because we have multiple crises in our communities happening right now.
Mhm.
And what I've learned in my life, when I'm overwhelmed, I got to break it down and compartmentalize it and make a decision what goes first. And that's where I see every society, not just Hudson, but every community right now is overwhelmed right now with multiple disasters. And it's affect every individual in our community in some way. So we just have to break it down. And I have to break it down and make a priority, and I'll make that decision. But the priority right now, I think, is dealing with the killing. And with that terrible tragedy, it's an opportunity. It really is. Let's take this opportunity and make something good of it, because it's, and it's hard for me to go before you as a white male, who's had a privileged life. And so I acknowledge that, and I could listen, and I'm teaching my officers that people know you don't have an answer on the streets. No one expects you to have it, but they just want you to listen. That's it. Just listen. And it's taken me a long time to learn that. Just listen to somebody, and it makes a difference. You don't have to respond. So yeah. So we're looking at, it's just a crisis right now, and it's overwhelming as an administrator right now of what do you do, let alone the city council and all that. Hudson's in a huge crisis, and we just have to acknowledge that. And we'll get together, and that's why I'm here with the youth, because my biggest fear right now is what are we going to do? I mean, this is a real thing that's coming down that we have no clue. We could make a plan today, like Nick's making plans, and 2 days later, that plan gets thrown out the window because everything's changing right now. So we have to be real flexible. And what I say to people is we got to play in the gray. This is all great. There's no either or, there's no flow chart. It's all gray area now. We got to play in the gray. We may have to come together once a week to say, okay, everything's changed again. What happens if we go backwards to phase 0? That's going to change everything. That's my fear. People will not want that to happen. That is going to be a hard thing. If we get a huge spike and people start dying, because no one can predict this, and we go back to 0. I mean, people have to stop work when they just started again, and it's going to be that. I'm just fearful. Just fearful of that crisis, let alone the youth, let alone everything else. So, but we just got to deal with it and go forward. So I'm working on it. But I feel the priorities right now is to teach and mentor conversations. And that's what the administration and the mayor wants. So I'm going to do what the mayor wants, and the city council wants. They want, let's start that conversation and get better as a police department with that conversation. And I'll mentor that. And that's why I'm here when I was invited to mentor that.
Man,
Uh,
appreciate that.
Peter, thank you so much for that. And one of the things that I just would like to say is that this community and the people right now in this meeting are incredible resources in terms of understanding and knowing youth and families, very human levels. And if there is a way that we can be a part of creating that bridge, that sort of human bridge of relationship, I would say that that would be pretty powerful.
Yeah, and that's something I'll definitely need, because even if the thing that went over my head was, Ice Pop Friday, it's not just going to be cops going out there. I think it's important that the youth department helps us connect us and connect that bridge. So it takes a whole community to make that connection. The philosophy I have, it's our responsibility to integrate with the community. It's not the community's responsibility to integrate with the police. So you gotta help me make that connection and teach the younger officers to make connections that way. And without the emergency, without that usually cops deal with people in high emotional times in an emergency, in a crisis. And I want to get that conversation without the crisis. And I think that's key.
And the officers actually getting to know the people who are working with the youth first, so that we actually have, to me, a relationship of we're working together. To me, it's the adults coming together, working in partnership for and with the youth that is critical. That we're not just an access point, but that we know one another.
Absolutely, and we'll be working on that.
Correct.
It's
Thank
not
you.
gonna be easy, but we'll struggle together.
Mhm.
All we can do is struggle together.
Great. Thank you so much.
Pete, can I ask a question too? So one of the big things that's come up is also around like structural accountability. And like you said, there's some police on the force, there's some some people on the force who are better at interacting with people than others. But what's interesting is that I bet that all of us as youth workers could tell you the names of exactly who is and who isn't, because our kids interact with them so much. I don't have a ton of interaction directly with officers. I've had some in the past, but for the most part, I know their names through our kids, and I know their reputations through our kids. I know who mistreats kids and who doesn't. And so there is, I just wanted to we're a resource in terms of ideas and solutions and partnership and moving things forward. But we also know what it's like we are all hearing from, particularly from Black youth growing up in Hudson, what it's like to be policed by the HPD. And it's not great. And so if there's a way for us to figure out, like, how are you deciding who needs to get this training, and if that can be vetted with some of us or with youth themselves. And with that question, or with that statement, I guess, is the idea that the complaint system that currently exists requires people to go into the police department and actually like file a complaint in the police department itself. And I'm wondering if there could be a website, a web page or something where people could put a complaint that maybe isn't as significant as like a major thing, but just like, I felt disrespected or I felt mistreated, just so we start flagging and seeing if there's patterns. An officer said this to me or used this word when he spoke to me, and I'm going to put that on the website. And then we, the collective information could add up to, if we're seeing like, hey, this has been said 5 or 6 times about an officer, that starts to be a real issue, right? So, but the current complaint process, nobody wants to do it. Anytime I've encouraged people, they're like, I'm not gonna and as if there's no trust that it would be followed up with. So I'm wondering about those things as like structural pieces, because people want more than to be friends with, they want more than friendliness. They want to know that the police officers are accountable, and that if there's any hint of abuse of power, that there are many roads to to squashing that, because that's where we're seeing that's where police brutality comes from, is a lack of accountability. From when you look in the past of any of these guys, they've been
Snowball.
flagged for years and nothing's happened. So that's where I think the community would actually be more open to the police coming in with ice pops if they know that they can also complain about them if they disrespect them.
Mutual trust.
Absolutely. And what I have to do is balance a union contract with personnel grievances, along with New York State case law with police. And so there's, I would like to make an online complaint availability, but then I have to put the whole process and have to balance a lot more before that to happen. So yes, I think asking someone to go to the police station to make a complaint is too intimidating. It stops you from the complaint and it stops the conversation there. So we're trying to find a way to balance everything. So we don't end up as a city spending thousands of dollars on a grievance based on a personnel complaint. But so yeah, so I'm working on that. I just came out with LEAD, Law Enforcement Action Partnership. I'm one of their national speakers about that change in accountability. And we have to change certain laws federally that protect officers from finding out that history. Because if you just look at the Minneapolis officer, I just say this: when you're in a large agency and you have 19 years on the job and you're still in patrol and you have not been promoted, there's a reason why. I knew once that happened. I was like, once I heard he was a 19-year officer in a large, it's not like Hudson. Hudson doesn't have a lot of opportunity. It's a small department, so not everyone's going to get promoted. But when you're in a large agency, you should be promoted by 19 years on to something. You should be doing something besides being on patrol. So I knew he was a problem child, and that. So it was a lack of leadership. It was a lack of accountability in the system itself, and so it is a change. The change I have to do for Hudson is what I did in Chatham, because if you remember in Chatham, the word was if you go 2 miles an hour over the speed limit in Chatham, you're going to get pulled over. I mean, that was just well known in the whole county. Don't go 2 miles an hour over. So I had to teach the officers.
That's not a thing anymore.
No, it's not. No, and because
Guys, slow down.
it's not. It's a philosophical change of cops need to serve and protect and not go on the hunt. The problem now is there are officers that when they put the badge on and they go on patrol, they're going on the hunt. And so we have to make a philosophical, psychological change that I cannot do overnight, but with the community, we could work together. When you've been trained that for 10 years to go on the hunt, it's hard for a cop. It's just like with recovery. When they say, well, an addict is a criminal. Why? Because it's against the law. When that happens, I'm like, no, it's a medical condition. And that's a hard thing for people even to see that piece. So I'm willing to get in that and make that, and I can make that change. It's just, I'll need help from you all. I'll need help from the community. Because when an officer does well, you know, we need to praise that officer, and we're going to work on that a little more. And, you know, you always pet the dog when the dog does well, and instead of kicking the dog when the dog does something wrong, because you kick the dog enough, it's going to bite you back. And so it's a new philosophy that has to come in of fear and intimidation to have control. No, you don't need that in a community. You can have control of the community when you work with the community as an officer, and I've always have. I'm not a tough guy, in case you didn't notice. Never was a tough guy as a cop, but I've always got to know the community, and everyone feels that I can go and at least I'll listen with anything, no matter what. I will never judge anyone. I'm in recovery. I've learned that with my humility. I will never judge anyone with their problem and what's going on.
And that's the definition of policing right there. That's how it should be.
We're on to it. So COVID kind of threw things off. So I'm trying to get back on track with that. So give me a couple more months and I'm sure you're going to start to hear and see differences going on. And we're going to immediately, I already ordered immediately more body cams. In case you didn't know, there wasn't enough body cams for every officer that's on patrol sometimes. That ended. No. We're putting body cams on all officers on patrol. So that's an immediate order that once I found that out, we're adding body cams to accountability. And it's not for the community, by the way, it's for the officers, because when you know you're on video as an officer, you act differently.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and I do want to recognize that you're essentially a volunteer. So I know how the commissioner system works. So I know you can't do everything overnight. And I also want to recognize the letter that you posted was huge and very important to the community and played no small part in the response that then came from the community. So I do see those things. I see you doing the work. So, but consider us a resource and experts in how youth are treated by HPD.
And you know your community better than I know the community. You just know the community better because you know, so I'm still an outsider coming in and I got to earn my stripes and I'll, you know, earn trust and give me time. Don't listen to what I say, watch what I do. That's all I can say. And in time, you'll see what I do.
Thank you, Mr. Volkman. I wanted to give Peter Frank a chance, if he's still with us, to speak, if possible. Peter Frank, are you with us?
I'm here. Thank you,
How you
Malachi.
doing?
I'm fascinated and by this conversation, and I'm really glad it's happening. But I don't have anything to contribute at this moment. But thank you.
Okay. Because I saw the shirts, so I just wanted to. I didn't know if that was.
Yeah, the shirts are available. So if anybody wants one, but I think we're talking about something more important. Thank you.
All right. No problem. All right. Does anybody else have anything they want to contribute?
I will just, if nobody else has anything they want to say, just to circle back around to the initial kind of conversation about Oakdale Park and Oakdale Summer Camp. I will be probably putting together a resolution for the next council meeting in regards to finding a way to fund lifeguards. And I realize that may be a difficult ask, but I feel at this time, at least playing out the option of what it would be, what it would look like to have lifeguards on, and if that's a possibility, I want to at least go through that exercise and see whether there would be support. I know that that the community has asked for that. And I realize it's a really difficult time for the finances and the revenue of the city. But I just wanted to go over that. And if anybody had any further questions or comments about that, I just wanted to throw that out there because I think it's going to be a big topic of discussion, and it's going to be a lot.
Yeah.
And it's going to require a lot of support by everybody who believes it. This is an important thing for us to have. So putting it out there that it's going to require that support.
Absolutely. Anybody else have anything to add? Any other questions? Any other concerns?
Just one thing, Malachi, that I wanted to make sure people were aware of is that Kite's Nest has been offering free grief counseling to anyone who is affected by the murder of Terrell Starr. And we, going forward, are working to implement a free therapy program for youth in Hudson. But we've had a number of people express interest, but nobody's quite taken the step to actually go to the counseling yet. But I know you all have interactions with people yourselves. And so just a reminder that we do have free bereavement and grief counselors available to anyone who is affected by it. And it could be because they were close to him in particular, or maybe because they just feel impacted by there being a shooting in the community. So I know there's been a lot to respond to. We're moving super fast, but this is still also a raw issue for a lot of people. It's still hurting a lot of people. And we did also build a permanent memorial bed for him outside of the community garden with like healing herbs and flowers and stuff that people can go to, so that the site that got cleaned up in the parking lot, now there's like another spot that's a more permanent spot to honor him. It's not a hangout spot or anything, but people are welcome to go there and be there.
Thank you for that, Kai.
Mhm.
Anybody else? Well, all right. This time. Anybody to adjourn the meeting?
Motion.
Motion? Second motion?
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Have a good day. Good to see everybody. Good to hear from everybody. Have a
Thank
good
you.
Thank you. Stay well.
Thank you, Malachi.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for making